With apologies to Oscar Wilde, I'd like to think that being earnest means having sincere intentions. While the character in the play, The Importance of Being Earnest, Ernest Worthing made a mess of it. There is no doubt that his intentions were sincere. I think actors try to do their work with sincere intentions, yet the results can sometimes be unpredictable as well. Let's take a look at why actors have the right intention, but still make a mess of it, on this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
Welcome to Casting Actors Cast, the podcast and video for actors. Each week, we provide practical, useful information to advance your craft and your career in the business of show. And now, here's your host, casting director Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. How are you? I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. I'm a casting partner with McCorkle Casting in New York. How are you? So nice to see you today. Thank you for joining us on Casting Actors Cast. We continue to grow this audience, and it's very, very exciting to hear from you. And so I want to just put out an invitation. If you are interested in more information about the podcast, please go to castingactorscast.com. That's castingactorscast, all one word, .com. There you're going to find some past episodes. You're going to find an area called Jeff's Jots, and that's a place where I put all of the show notes to the corresponding episodes. So that's there for you. But also there's a form there that gives me your name and your email address. That's it. By the way, I don't do anything really with that. On occasion, I might send out a notice about an upcoming episode, but I don't take advantage of your good nature. But if you do fill out that form that says dive into the talent pool, you can join the huge number of people that have done so. You'll get some freebies. One is a book. It's a free book, 100 pages. It's a PDF that you can download, you can print out, or just use on your device to read. And it's called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. It's a workshop manual that you're going to find really useful if you are interested in doing some voiceover work. I think you're going to find it very, very helpful. I wrote it a handful of years ago, and you know what? I believe very strongly that the exercises and the copy and the information is extremely valuable still. Also, you have the option, if you'd like, to take a look at the video that's also there. It's a free, private, 20-minute video called Casting Secrets, What They Don't Want You to Know. It's a 20-minute video, just like this kind of a format on YouTube, but it's private. That means you'll get the inside information, and it's exclusive to those of you who simply fill out that form. And finally, here's my shout out to my friends at Actors Connection. Please check out actorsconnection.com/New York for classes, workshops, seminars, all done virtually with professionals working in the industry. actorsconnection.com/New York. So I thought this would be a fun topic to cover today because I really relate to the information today based on my own experience as an actor. I was an actor for 20 years before I transitioned into casting, and I have a really good sensibility, I think at least, when it comes to seeing actors in the audition space, but also in performance. And I oftentimes get a different, I don't know how to say this, a different vibe from actors. And it all comes down to, I believe, the process that actors employ when working on or developing a character for a role. So I wanted to address this, the importance of being earnest. And first of all, we need to define what being earnest means for the actor. Usually, and what I mean today, is the actor wanting to do well, simply a desire to be good, a desire to be accepted, wanting to make a good impression, wanting to be right for the part. Have you ever said that to yourself? I just want to be right for the part. And so what often happens when actors prepare with good intentions, there are several things to consider. The objective of being liked often outweighs the process of preparation. Let me say that again. The objective of being liked often outweighs the process of your preparation. That means that you are saying to yourself, I really just want to be appreciated for the good actor that I am. And time is spent on that internally on the actor's part, in my view. I've done this myself. But you know what happens is it outweighs the good old-fashioned hard work that preparing for the role actually demands. And so we pay attention more to the impression that we're making rather than to the process of doing good work. Here's an example. When you have the prospect of a booking, let's just say the actor's been asked to audition for a television pilot, to be on a TV series. The prospect of booking the job oftentimes will push the actor to make choices that will be universally appreciated, as opposed to being specific with showing me, the casting director, how you are going to play the part. And there are several factors for that. For example, if auditioning for a television pilot, you're told, well, the pilot is going to pay you $10,000, and then if it's picked up, blah, blah, blah. So now you have money. You have the idea, oh, I could be on a television series. It's very, very exciting. Now the choices are being filtered through that lens, as opposed to the lens of, how am I going to approach the work? How am I going to play the character? Showing me how you are going to play the part is so much more important than who you are during an audition. The who you are part is something that just is inherently there. You don't have to work at that. Here's another example. Often actors, in my opinion, and this included me when I was acting, so I'm not trying to kind of, point fingers, but actors seem to often lack discipline when they work on a role, and they depend on their, how do I say this? Well, I'm just going to say it. They depend on their winning personality. They say to themselves, well, my resume shows the kind of work that I'm capable of doing. I know that I'm perfect for this part. And so now the ego is simply taking over, and there is less time, energy, focus, concentration on showing me the role, showing me how you're going to play the part. So be careful about letting those external, internal dialogues take over good old-fashioned hard work and preparation. This is kind of a little bit of a diversion, this next point I'd like to make, and that is that not all the characters that you're being asked to play have sincerity. Okay, I know that sounds weird, but let me just kind of put it in a different perspective. If you approach every role you are playing with the same level of sincerity that you possess, you're denying yourself the opportunity of showing me more ways in which the character might behave. Just because you approach the role, and of course I've said this, right? This is what's hard to, I think, kind of make clear to you. I've often said that when you're auditioning for film and television, you have to start with the foundation of you first. It has to be who you are, your life experience, because you just don't have the same amount of time for a film and television audition that you might have if you've been cast in a play and you have 3 and 4 and 5 weeks of rehearsal. In film and television, you've got 5 minutes, not 5 weeks. So you have to start with a foundation of who you are first. And part of the ingredient of the character that you bring into that role is your own sincerity, your own earnestness, if you will. And so finding the right balance between your connection to the character and the character itself might be different. It might not be the same. Too many times, especially in auditions, especially for film and television, I see the actor not only trying to demonstrate sincerity, but they are sincere throughout the entire audition. They're showing me one level of how they're going to play the part. And human beings just aren't like that. Human beings have multiple levels happening simultaneously all the time. So it's important to find the similarities and the differences. so that you can bring in as many colors and as many choices as you can. Now, here are some additional solutions I'd like to share with you about being earnest. One is to invest in the layers, like I just mentioned. The edges, you've heard this before. We need this character to be edgy. Well, what does that really mean? Well, those are several layers happening simultaneously. Uniqueness you bring to each role is what is valued in your acting. That no two characters are ever alike. Now, I did say that you start with a foundation of you, and then from that point is where you find differences. You diverge. Ooh, good word. I love when that happens. You diverge from that in order to bring in choices that the character can explore and that you can explore as the character. Here's another suggestion: to give as much time as you can, to try as many choices as you can. I know that there are oftentimes very much time constraints for role preparation, especially if there's increased pressure. For example, you've got to get a self-tape in and you've got less than 24 hours. Man, that can be a lot of pressure. Or, like I mentioned earlier, the example of having a television series, that can make you go kind of like, oh my God, this could be a major career move. And so you put undue pressure on yourself. So you must find a way to give yourself as much time so that you can try as many different choices as you can. Here's the other thing. Your first choices, your first instincts are not always the best. Surprise, surprise. Sometimes our default setting is to try and get it as quickly as possible. Allow yourself the opportunity to give time when working on a role. Not be as concerned about the sincerity that you're bringing to the role, your earnestness, but it's important that you think in terms of the layers, you think in terms of the edges, you think in terms of, well, listen, you've had your training, you've had your experience. Trust that first. Here's another suggestion. I say this frequently, and even when I say it, sometimes I just don't see it being translated well into the work. Please do yourself a favor and don't try to watch yourself when you're making choices. In other words, we always have this third eye. We're constantly evaluating how we're doing while we're doing it. And if you really do condition yourself to refrain from watching yourself when making the choices, it really does give you an opportunity just to enjoy the performing part of it. You enjoy the investment into the character that you're making and not evaluate whether you believe it's successful or not. My suggestion is that you take your temperature after the scene is finished. And here's the way you do it. You don't ask yourself, how did that feel? It's not about feelings. If you ask yourself, oh, how did that feel? Oh, that felt good. That's not helpful to you. And here's why. It again reinforces that third eye, that ability to watch and evaluate while you're acting. The truth of the matter is that when a scene is extraordinary for you and you ask yourself the question, what did I do that made that so extraordinary? The answer honestly should be, I haven't a clue. In other words, your concentration, your investment in playing the part, your moment-to-moment work, all of those things that you already know to do takes over and really becomes just soul reinforcing. It becomes just really satisfying. And so it's not about asking yourself, how did that feel? It really comes to, did I meet the objective or the purpose of the scene? Did my character have the full range and benefit of the experience while it was happening? Those are the more helpful questions, I think. I would also suggest, and I've mentioned this in some previous recent podcasts, but I would love for you to put in as much energy into the other character in a scene that you're working on as you would your own character. I oftentimes am in wonder about the actor feeling like every audition is all about them. In truth, the more energy you put into trying to understand the other character, the more I see your technique, the more I see your choices, your edges. You become so much more interesting when you are genuinely investing in the other character, how the other character is behaving. There was an acting teacher once that told me the scene is never, ever about you. So don't make it about you. Make the energy, the focus, the investment about the other character. And guess what will happen? If you really do make that investment, your energy, your choices, your edges will not just be on this sincere level, that it will be a dynamic demonstration of how you're going to play the part. I hope that makes sense. Here's another just simple thought. Stop trying to be sincere. That's the whole point of this podcast, I think. Don't try to be sincere. You are already there. I would take the work very seriously, but honestly, I would suggest that you stop trying to take yourself too seriously. Because you are already made up of all of this interesting life experience. You do not have to show me that you are a sincere actor. So my suggestion is to condition yourself to the same method of preparation. Once you establish the way you're going to approach a role, whether it's for a class or whether it's for an actual audition or whether it's you booked the job and you're working on the part, once you condition yourself to the way you prepare, you're going to find yourself thinking less about how you're doing and getting more of the sense of how you're going to play the part. Now, once you understand the difference between you and the character you're playing, you're going to find even more choices that will make the best impression with your acting technique. You will be in full compliance with what I call the importance of being earnest. So if you enjoyed what I just had to share with you, thank you so much. Please leave me a like, a thumbs up. Please feel free to give me a review, iTunes especially. I would love to get more people interested in the podcast, and I am so grateful that you're there. I look forward to talking to you next time. And what we're going to be covering is, I think, really of value to you. And we're going to talk about the legal matters, contracts, negotiations, all of that. Real practical stuff on the next episode of Casting Actors Cast. Have a great day.
It's been great having you in our talent pool today. Your support means the world to us, so please consider sharing, liking, and reviewing this episode wherever you jump in. I'm Megan Grace Martinez. Thanks.